Welcome, this is Thomas Dodds. Welcome to the Meaningful Momentum series. We're doing a series on fighting inflation, and today I'm going to be talking about how to raise prices. You might be a service business, you might be a product business. Regardless, we're operating on the premise of standing before kings, you'll need to be excellent at your work. So inflation presents a real risk and a real problem to doing excellent work and to maintaining meaningful momentum in our businesses. Already, many service businesses and other businesses have been hit with inflation. We're going to take a look at a service business today just for the simplicity of it. What happens when the service business experiences that inflation? What happens to the business model and the momentum with it? So I've used a spreadsheet to look at that and to model out meaningful momentum for businesses, profit, fueling care for people, and lasting impact. I've simplified this today so we can take a look at just the profit side of it. So let's imagine a service business with $10 million in revenue. That business typically would have 30% gross margin, 10% margin with 20% overhead. That is a healthy service business. This is about average for a business. Your business might be a little lower, might be a little higher. You might have unique ratios there. Or you might have products in here as well. Or this doesn't particularly fit for manufacturing. But I want to use a service business, a pure service business, just to illustrate the point. So let's say that wages are going up about 10%, which they are often in our many services businesses are already experiencing that, especially in hospitality, retail, and others are coming along at the same clip. And according to a study by Vistage, 72% of inflationary drivers in a business right now are driven by wages. So that's probably going to be you, probably going to be in a service business as well. So what happens here to the business? Let's assume when we model this scenario out that revenue is the same and we keep pricing the same, but that the cost of goods and services, inflation hits that at a plus 10%. Let's assume staff satisfaction and quality remain constant for this exercise. And let's assume that expenses are going up 10%. So inflation is hitting 10% across the board. If that happens, what are the actual numbers going to look like? The increase in costs, direct costs, about 10%, increase in indirect costs, brings down the net profit EBITDA to about 1%. And if you look at your business, that cost of depreciation, amortization, taxes, and interest is probably going to bring that to a negative number. Your meaningful momentum is going to grind to a halt. The cash flow engine is not going to be able to fuel growth, generosity for the gospel, or otherwise. So what's the impact to momentum? Profit loss, not able to be generous, not able to invest in growth, and your purpose impact decreases. Now let's take a look at what happens if we can raise prices to impact that in this model. So let's take a look at this again. Our assumption here in this model is that we're going to increase pricing and that revenue will maintain a proportional increase to the increased pricing with minimal loss of customers. In your particular case, you'll have to judge what your customer's tolerance is for a global increase in pricing. I'm not saying this is one strategy, the only strategy to use. We'll look at selective pricing increases in a future video. But let's say again that inflation is about 10% and that staff satisfaction and customer quality remain constant and satisfaction and inflation at 10% hits across the board. So what happens here if we raise our prices? Let's look at raising our prices 4% and see what happens. That might seem that's a pretty healthy increase, but what happens here? That only gets us to the point where we have 5% EBITDA. That's still not a very healthy place for most service businesses to be. Again, you'll have to evaluate your scenario. But what happens if we actually do a proportional increase for our customers? So let's look at a 10% increase. If we have a 10% increase, that maintains our margin ratios pretty well, and it gives us a 10% net profit at the bottom. So we're going to want to maintain that. We may not be able to do this. You may not be able to do this in your business, but it's one component. So whether it's a 4%, 10%, whatever you can do in a global increase, you may want to consider this as one tool in the toolbox to maintain meaningful momentum. So join me, take a look below at the other links that I've got here if you're interested in joining one of my cohorts or for one-to-one coaching, and stay tuned for the rest of the series on inflation. Go make meaningful momentum. Thanks.